to follow the screening of your wonderful movie. You all love the movie, yes? So we're going to begin with a couple of curated questions here first, and then we're going to open this up to the audience if you have any questions that you would like to ask Laura afterwards. So Laura, we'd like to begin by asking, how did you first meet about our family and come up with the idea for the documentary of their life, their farm, and their building of the houses and agriculture?
Yes, we were driving around Gaspé Peninsula, and for pleasure, my partner, he was an academic and he had to teach a field course. He was about to teach an annual field course in Gaspésie, and he wasn't too familiar with it, so we decided to travel the summer before he started that course, teaching that course, and we met the family. And by happenstance, they have an Airbnb. You could stay at that time above their workshop, and so we stayed above the workshop, and on our last day, we sat on the terrace, the back deck that you see in the film, and they talked a little bit about their lives, and I knew right away that it could be a film.
So what was the process from that first meeting to actually signing in, pre-planning to make the documentary film?
Yeah, well, it's been 8 years since that moment. And I didn't mention anything. They knew that I was a documentary filmmaker, and they're very curious people, so they had lots of questions about that. And after we left, I wrote a letter and I sent them a letter about my interest in their lives and a little bit about the work that I had done in the past. I sent them a DVD of my past film, and so I wrote them a letter, and they wrote back and they said, come back with your family. So a year later, my family and I went back, and we discussed the possibility of a film, and then that was the process. But I had no financing, so for several years I would just go up and stay with them without a camera and go mushroom picking and eat with them and get to know them. And it wasn't until COVID hit that we received full financing for the film.
So what were then the next steps from once you received financing? How did you plan out what you were going to shoot over the next year and how you were going to document the story?
Yeah, so in documentary, it tends to be a long process, and you maybe get a little bit of money to bring a camera crew, and you do what's called a research shoot, and you make not a movie trailer, but sort of a taste of the film. So we had a little bit of money to do that. And when financing hit, when COVID hit, this family that bakes bread and gardens suddenly became much more mainstream. And what happens then is that you can then hire a crew and you plan out how many days you have. And so I worked with Gerard in particular to figure out when to come, when it might be interesting to film, although every day that you hang out with them is quite interesting, to me anyways. So we plotted out when we would come and an idea of what we would capture, but it's nature, so it doesn't always work as the way you think it will.
You could say they were into the lockdown hobbies before it was cool.
Yeah, it's not a hobby for them, right? It's their way of life. And when I first started talking about the film, financiers were like, that sounds nice, but it's not a movie. So yeah, it's interesting.
When you got that feedback saying that, no, this couldn't possibly be the subject of the feature, how did you then come back to sell the idea of the project?
Yeah, you just keep trying. You keep, often in documentary, the written word is really important. So you write a film treatment. And so I just kept working on my treatment and making it better and trying to help people imagine what they would see and articulate it better. And that's all you can really do. And you sort of have to follow a gut feeling regardless of what people say or think. And then it's funny, society shifted. This family didn't shift. What they were doing didn't change. In fact, out of anyone I know during COVID, their lives were the least affected. So, their business was affected. They picked for chefs and restaurants and whatnot, but their core of their lives were the least affected of anyone that I know. So, you just keep trying. That's the way documentary works.
Now, one of the arching themes that we've seen through a lot of the movies, especially the Canadian set movies in our festival this year, has been the grounding of place and what makes different places across Canada so special. I'll admit, I myself come from Campbellton, New Brunswick, which is a small city literally on the other side of the Baie de Chaleur, just south of Gaspé, where this movie was shot and filmed. So for me, it gives me great pride to see my neck of the woods portrayed on the big screen. But for someone who first visited and then spent so much time there, both shooting and visiting, what makes Gaspé so special as a character in this story?
Yeah,
or not Gaspé specifically, with the land of which they were working on and the family lives in.
Yeah, well, many, I'm from Ontario, originally from Niagara, and I wasn't familiar with Gaspé Peninsula, but it's about the size of Belgium. And it's sort of East Coast meets West Coast is the best way that I can describe it. So you have the sheer cliffs, you have whales and seals and aquatic life from the ocean, and yet you have vast forest and also sort of a francophone, but also anglophone culture there. It's really majestic is the best way to describe it. It's cinematic. But they're about 7 minutes from the ocean, and yet they're in the heart of the forest. And there's not a lot of places like that. And they chose that position very well. So they're only 20 minutes outside of the town of Gaspé, which is the largest city of Gaspé. I would say the word majestic is the best way to describe it.
In a completely unbiased opinion, that's a great way to describe it. Now, one of the other, thank you, one person laughed, that's all I wanted.
I'll laugh.
Thank you. One of the other overarching themes to all of our stories this year is the essence of family, different shapes, sizes, and ways we examine family relationships. What is it about the Matar family and their family dynamic that we can take away as an audience?
Well, I'll ask you, what did you take away?
Ooh. I took away a great deal of trust in a plan, and that's not something you always see commonly in parent-child relationships. So that's me personally, but maybe we'll hear from the rest of the audience in just a minute. Maybe a better question then, what as a director do you hope people take away from seeing and learning about the lives of the Matar family?
Well, I find it's really interesting when you make documentaries or films, in that it really holds up a mirror. And what I found with this film has traveled quite a bit is that it often makes us think about our relationships with our parents or our siblings or what we want for our own children. And so I try to stay away from telling people what I want them to get out of it. I try to be, it's not a completely observational film, but I'd much rather people see something that helps them think about their lives. For me, as a director in this, I thought it was really interesting to see a family and that has a really defined set of values. And they have a website for their foraging business, and on their foraging website, they state their values to live connected with nature, to not take more than they need, and some economic values as well. And so I thought, how does our love of nature get passed down through the generations if we want to respect nature, climate change, and I'm here in Quebec in the forest fires. It's cloudy here today. And so our parents, who are obviously deeply connected to the natural world, are they able to imbue that respect for their children? So that was, I work more in questions than what I hope people will get out of it.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Now, I think we have some questions to the audience, so I'm going to open this to everyone here. If you have anything that you would like to ask Laura, just put up your hand. I'll call on you and then repeat it into the microphone to make sure both she and everyone on our live stream tuning in from us at home, hello everyone, can hear us as well. Hello, in the back, yes.
Yes, hi, thank you. I'm not sure why I liked your film, but I absolutely loved it from start to finish.
Beginning comment, he's not sure why he likes your film, but he loved it from start to finish.
Was that?
I think a lot of people feel that way. Thank you so much.
I was wondering throughout, how on earth did that family learn so many skills? Because it was like beekeeping.
So the first question was, how on earth did that family learn so many different individual skills?
Yeah, and you don't even see everything that they can do. They get that question a lot. I get that question a lot. It's just over time. you know, they have slowly, for example, you know, they said to me, if you want to learn how to be more self-sufficient, get 2 chickens and start from there. And so I ordered 2 chickens. So we have 2 chickens, cocoa and pistachio. In a place, actually, we live in rural Quebec and you're not supposed to have chickens, but you can in Montreal. So that's their sort of philosophy. They start and then they keep going. And I think you hear Catherine in the film talking about the garden. It took them 10 years to get it to a point where it's producing. They're very hardworking people who have been able to manage now their full-time jobs are what you see. So when you're there during this time of year, Catherine is up at 4:30 in the morning gardening because she likes it. So I think it's an interesting thing to ask ourselves, what could we accomplish if we slowly and diligently work at it?
I'm really glad you told us the name of the chickens. That was going to be my next question. Anyone else?
I was wondering how long the entire shoot was. How long
was the entire shoot for the project?
Yeah, it was a year and a half. But like I said, there were quite a few years of getting to know them. And then we had a research shoot, and then we shot over the course of a year, so about a year and a half in total, with a camera.
Yes, hello.
So there was a suggestion of the dark side of the dad. Did you see, we didn't see a dark side, and we didn't see how every family is in a way dysfunctional or has its ups and downs, or did you see any of that? We didn't see it.
There was mention of the dark side of the father, and yet it wasn't depicted in the film. So the question is, did you ever get a glimpse or an inside look into the suggested dark side of the character?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Thank you to the person, I can't see anyone, but thank you to the person who just asked that. Again, it's this interesting phenomenon that happens with art or film, is that you hold up a mirror and we all sort of, we take it subjectively. We like it, we don't like it, we see different things in it. So some people have watched this film and they find the scene where Gerard talks to Jonas about all the skills that he has. It's at a kitchen table and Catherine's there, and you know, we don't care if you get a PhD. You know, what are you going to get a PhD in your video games? And so some people watch this film and find Gerard very overbearing and too much. Other people watch this film and find him charming. And so, you know, it's really up for your interpretation. So I would say that some people have found a darker side to him when they see how much Gerard wants his sons to take on this way of life.
Now, we're almost out of time for this session because we have to get ready for the next screening. But before we go, Laura, just as a final question, one of the great things about OFFA is that we get to intermingle seasoned professionals along with new filmmakers and student filmmakers. So your film today was attached to 2 student-made short films that came before it. What advice would you give to emerging filmmakers, recent grads, or new documentarians as they're beginning their careers?
Well, that's a big question. You know, to follow your gut instinct, really, to do something not because at the end of the day, it's really nice when a festival recognizes your film and screens it, or this was also shown on TV, and or if you receive an award or you're nominated for an award, those are really special things. But at the end of the day, you have to really enjoy the process. So what is it that you enjoy learning and doing? And that's what's most important, because people may or may not like your work, but at the end of the day, if you really enjoyed what you did, that's one of the best feelings of all.
Wise words. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me again in thanking Director Laura Reitveld, both for her wonderful reading and for joining us for this special Q&A this afternoon. Laura, thank you so much for making the time available to be here for us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for screening the film, and thank you for everybody who's there today. And I really appreciate it.
Well, that's going to conclude this afternoon's presentation of Family of the Forest. Thank you to all of you for coming out this afternoon. However, while today is the last day of OFFA 2023, We're not done screenings yet. We still have 4 other events slated for the rest of today here at the cinema. If you're interested in any of the other events, there are tickets still available at the box office outside or on our website, OFFA.ca. To all of our friends joining us on live stream, watching from home, why aren't you here? Why aren't you at the movie theater? We have so many great movies that you could be watching today. And of course, if you love Family of the Forest or our short films as well, rooted in art or in the forest, they are all eligible for the Audience Choice Awards. And remember, by voting on Evented for your favorite movie of the festival, you're automatically entered to win that beautiful cruise vacation for 2 to the Mediterranean next summer. With that in mind, that's going to conclude our presentation this afternoon. My name is Tyler Collins. It's been my privilege to be one of your hosts. If you have other movies to go to, we hope you enjoy the rest of the festival. If not, have a safe trip home. Thank you, everyone.